It has been a strange year for any holiday, especially this Christmas. So appropriately, this podcast is a story about foot baths, friendships made over fences, and a dragonfly who became the galaxy's newest comet. My name is Suska, and this is my Christmas story.
Just look at your feet. Look at the dirt between your toes. I never saw a 5-year-old little girl have such nasty feet. Now look at your sisters. Look how nice and clean she is. She ain't standing on no dirty feet.
Dirt would attach itself to little girls who jumped, ran, and cartwheeled in the alley behind our cleaning store. The alleys were a place of play and business, primarily for short kids in the neighborhood. And that's where dirt would stick itself to bare feet. It would hide under the nail parts and in toe jams undetected. My father had to wash and scrub them away on nights when my mother worked late sewing buttons on customers' wedding clothes and funeral suits.
Oh, go to your father and have him clean you up before you go to bed. Oh, good Lord. Dirt seems to love you more than any other child.
I stood in the kitchen's porcelain sink filled with warm water. The end of my legs disappeared under a cloud of bubbles. My father hated long back-bending baths in the tub, so he replaced them with foot baths in the kitchen sink. Oh, he would tell me, dirt is like ketchup. At the end of the day, it all settles to the bottom anyway. But I love sink baths. It was better for storytelling. Plus, the sink only had room for one set of feet. It was more private. My sink bath took the longest. My feet were dirtier than my sister's. I rested one arm on my father's shoulder for support and the other on the window frame above the sink. Outside the window, I could see whether Stacy was in her yard. The window gave me a better view. Stacy's yard was in front of her house. There was no grass. It was filled with undernourished dirt and unplanned piles of mud. Wood planks led visiting guests from the street gate to their front door. When it rained, the dirt turned to mud and stuck to Stacy's shoes. Oh, her mother would yell all the time at Stacy and her brothers for tracking in mud pies in the house. I could hear her from our kitchen. Oh, on hot summer nights, the window brought in the smells of dead fish. Buckets of smelt caught by Stacy's father that morning or the day prior were kept outside. When the sun was done, his sons would dig a hole and build a pit for their cooking. At nighttime, the fire would turn the boys' dark faces gold and their teeth into pearls. Music tickled everyone's feet and dirt danced in circles. Laughing and singing and the deathless sounds of children carried late into the summer's night and kept us awake. Under the covers inside my head, I would giggle and cartwheel around the fire with Stacy until I fell asleep. Come on, Papa, tell me the story about the flies.
Don't you want to hear a different story, Suska? You know the whole story by heart, nearly word for word.
It's just the best story ever. Come on, Papa, no shortcuts. I want to hear everything from the beginning to the end, and don't leave anything out. Now that I'm 5, I know when you skip stuff.
What about the magic banana story?
Oh, that's not a story. That's a magic trick, which I haven't figured out yet. I'm going to talk to Stacy about that. She knows just about everything.
Stacy, huh? How could I forget?
I put my nose to the window to see if Stacy was in the yard. You know, she's quite knowledgeable. Gypsies know just about everything there is about magic. Stacy and I were exactly the same age. We were both explorers and secret friends. Stacy had long, black, shiny hair that separated over her shoulders and a canopy of bangs shading her black almond eyes. Her mother told her that she looked exactly like her grandmother when she was about Stacy's age, living in a small town in Turkey. Stacy's grandmother, of course, is dead now. We were separated by a fence with large square openings, large enough for small hands to squeeze through. Fence made it easy to share secrets and licorice. Near the bottom of the fence was a wood ledge that we would step on and reach over when we needed to exchange bigger secrets and uncut sandwiches. My friend Stacy had 4 brothers. She was the youngest and the only girl. They all had black hair, shorter than Stacy's, but longer than most boys I knew. They smoked cigarettes. There was always a white cigarette tucked behind the boys' dark ears. They were scary cool to most people. I love scary cool. When Cheerios died, our canary bird, my father buried the lifeless creature in the corner of our tiny yard close to the fence. Stacy watched from the other side, standing tall and soldier straight. I saw Stacy's right hand cover her heart through the whole burial. She saluted at the end when my father tapped down the mud pile with his shovel. Stacy was my best friend.
You better not tell your mother about Stacy. She doesn't like her wild ways. It's best she stays on her side of the fence and you stay on our side. That way there's no trouble. And don't let your mother catch you even thinking about going over to Stacy's yard through the alleyway.
My father added more soap. He looked down into the sink where the clouds of bubbles were slowly drowning in a pool of dark gray water. The sink's sides were edged in alley dirt.
Sometimes I think you are dead set on making your mother crazy.
During the week, my father worked at Western Electric in Cicero, a huge factory with a whistle that was heard for miles telling all workers it was time to come to work. He worked long hours. My sister and I were fast asleep when he finished his work day. He would peek in our room and glance for a moment at our closed faces. My face was never really closed. I pretended to sleep.
Come on now. We don't have all night, Papa.
Okay now, let me see. It was a warmer day than usual. Winter was at the end of its cold. The bus let me off at the work stop. Leo was with me. Now normally the bus fumes fill my nose on both sides, but this day a tiny bit of jasmine stuck in and tickled my hairs, telling me that it was spring. Leo and I walked into the factory and took the elevator going up to our department. The minute those elevator doors opened, I knew it was going to be a good flying day. All the windows were cracked wide open. Fresh city air filled the room. All us guys walked through the maze of maybe 100 work tables and machines. Mine was in the back, close to a line of open windows. I just got settled and then it started. They saw me. That's when they all came rushing over to my station, buzzing around my workhead. They just kept buzzing all morning long. Flies. Big flies. Flies that spent all winter just getting fat. They would do circles and dives, showing off all kinds of flying maneuvers just to get my attention. A few sat on my tools, walking back and forth, showing their muscles. Did you know that flies have muscles?
I knew that. Stacy told me.
You know flies are hyper, like you in the morning. They sleep all winter long. Then when the spring sun tickles their feet to wake up, they start going crazy. Well, the flies would talk to each other and the word got around. Mornings was the time when all the flies in the room could audition. After about 3 or 4 hours of working, a whistle would tell us it was time to stop what we were doing and open our lunch buckets. That's when all the flies got real serious. It was their last chance to show me how well they could fly. They would love to do nosedives, backflips, tumbles, twisters, and serpentines. First, I cleared my work area. Then I took out the paper napkin from my lunch bucket, laid it open on my table, and cut long, thin strips about so wide.
My father would raise his arm out of the water, put his thumb and index finger close together, and raise them an inch away from my nose. It took both my eyes meeting in the middle to see the tiny smidgen of space between them.
After I cut, about 10, maybe 15 strips, I would lay them down on my table side by side. Then, starting with only one strip, I lay it alone in the center of a square sheet of paper on my work table. On one end of the strip, at the tip, I put the tiniest speck of glue. Now I had to be extra smart. I start to look around the room looking for the best and biggest fly. and there were plenty to choose from. When I found the fly that appeared to be exceptional, my eyes would follow him closely to make sure he was the best one. Then I'd swing my hand up quickly in the air and in one quick sweep catch him in the cup of my hand so as not to squeeze him.
My father swung his wet hand in the air, reacting to the capture. Bubbles from the sink followed him and flew off his hand and into the air. Splats of suds and water hit the wall, spilled over the counter, and dripped down to the floor. I loved the theatrics and the mess that I knew would make my mother mad.
The winning fly was so shocked and excited that he would lay in my hand speechless. Then I would gently pick him up with my pocket tweezers and put his belly on the sticky end of the paper strip.
The first time I heard the story, I would cry for the flies. But Papa assured me that the paper-thin tail fell off their bellies after a time. They were never hurt or in pain. He told me it was fun for the flies. Riverview fun. And I knew about Riverview. It was the largest amusement park in Chicago and probably in the world. No one I knew ever died at Riverview, or left there unhappy for that matter. So I felt better about the flies and pushed away the tears from my eyes.
It would take my little fly a couple minutes to come out of being shocked. I watched him very carefully, waiting for him to give me the sign that he was ready.
I never heard the part about the fly giving my father any sign. I heard this story again and again, and never had Papa mentioned the sign. Sometimes he changed things around or added a little more information. My mouth felt glued shut in asking questions.
Big Mike and some of the other guys moved their stools over to my table to get closer. Leo had already turned on the transistor radio to play good fly diving music. The whole department got quiet. I looked at Leo. Leo looked at me. Then we both looked at the fly.
I saw it all in my head, even though I never met Leo or the fly.
I watched the fly. He looked good. I swear, Suska, I never told this to anyone, but that little fly winked at me. He was ready.
My eyes were stone stuck on my father. My head was thinking, holy shit. I learned holy shit from Stacy. No matter how many times I heard this story, my head heard it new for the first time.
I tightly held on to the edges of the paper and tossed the fly into the sky. The fly flew up in the air higher and higher, and then plummeted down and circled back up, his paper tail following every turn and dip. He flew above our heads, orbiting the room like a shooting star. Sometimes I would catch 5 or 6 flies and have them all flying around at one time. We'd sit there eating our sandwiches and drinking our sodas under a galaxy of shooting stars, dancing comets, and Duke Ellington.
Thank you for listening. My name is Suska, and this is the Dementialand podcast.